Good evening and welcome to another edition of Beyond the Front Page for the spring 2019 semester here at Cayuga Community College. This is a show that's broadcast on Spectrum, Verizon, Fios, the Auburn Regional Media Access, as well as played on Win 89.1, the college's radio station. I'm your host, Guy Cosentino. For almost a decade, Cayuga County's economic development efforts have been channeled through the Cayuga Economic Development Agency, better known as Ceda, located at 2 State Street in Auburn. Ceda has been at the forefront of helping to coordinate the work and to help existing companies in the area grow, as well as attract new ones, as well as help coordinate the Consolidated Financial Applications, CFAs, that are part of the Governor's Regional Economic Development Councils, better known as Red Cs. That's the last of the acronyms for me for a few minutes. But Ceda, with this exception, Ceda's Executive Director, TRACY VERRIER, we've invited in to talk about not only what her office does, but as well give us an update on some local economic development efforts, including the Downtown Revitalization Initiative, which she co-chairs with Auburn Mayor Michael D. Quill, and they head up that effort as well. Welcome back to the show.
Nice to see you.
Glad to have you here. And so for those who may live in a vacuum, Ceda is what?
The Cayuga Economic Development Agency is intended to be a one-stop service for businesses. So what we are attempting to do is bring all of the resources and experts into kind of one place. So if a business needs help, they can call one phone number, talk to one of our specialists.
So they're not discouraged when they go to City Hall. They say, well, you got to call somebody in the county. The county says you got to call somebody in the town. You get everything.
We are there to help streamline that process. So rather than making 10 phone calls, they can call us, figure out which 2 people they need to talk to, and talk to those 2 people. And we can help facilitate those conversations and point them in the right direction.
And how are you funded?
The majority of our funding does come from the county. A portion of our budget is also coming from service contracts with the 2 industrial development agencies in the county. And then there's another few little things that come in here and there, but those are the 2 big things, is their contracts with the county primarily and our contracts with the IDAs.
And we'll get into that, more funding in a second, but you're a not-for-profit?
We are a not-for-profit. We are a private not-for-profit, so we're not county employees either.
And so how large is your board?
We have a 15-member board.
And some of them are designated by position?
Correct.
Like the mayor and the chairman of the legislature?
Correct. We have the city manager, we have the chairs of the 2 IDAs, we've got the superintendent of the BOCES, we've got the chair of the legislature or the county administrator, depending on what makes sense for them at the time. So we do have a number of ex officio members. They are voting members, but they are there by title. And then we also have the other half of the board is representing business and county residents.
And how large a staff do you have?
So we have kind of 3 full-time people doing our specialists that are doing our economic development program work, and then we also have 2 part-time administrative folks, our office manager and our communications coordinator, and we have a marketing specialist who does our marketing work.
So you have some new staff there?
We do.
Who are they?
So just in 2018, we brought on Samantha Fruget. She is our technical specialist. She staffs the IDA. She does our underwriting for the loan programs and the more technical, nitty-gritty analysis type work. And then we also brought on...
Where'd she come from?
She actually moved up here from Florida in February, which was a shock to the system for her. Yep.
Really?
Yep. She's been here for a year now, though, so happy anniversary to Samantha. And she's made it through the winter okay, and we're really happy to have her here.
There's always tomorrow. Okay.
It is going to snow again.
Exactly. So it's always going to snow again. So who else has joined your staff?
We also brought on Derek Simmons. He came to us from the Cornell Cooperative Extension of Seneca County, and he is working with small businesses and entrepreneurs in Cayuga County.
And your third person, because you've mentioned 2, so let's do the trifecta.
Is Maureen Reister.
And she's the most senior of the group.
Correct. She's been with us for about 5 years now, getting close to 5 years. And she is working with our larger businesses in the community and doing attraction work to attract new businesses to the community.
So I want to get into what Ceda does, but I also attended your economic forecast luncheon at the end of January, which was interesting for 2 reasons. One was the one topic, which was the arts and their investment, but I was also very interested in what you unveiled as what I would you called, but I would also say the same thing, your dashboard of indicators. For those who don't understand what dashboard is, what is a dashboard?
So dashboard is just looking at some of the key factors, the key metrics to our work. In our case, this year we're looking at the number of jobs to be created by projects that we helped to induce last year. Also the number of jobs retained by the companies seeking that type of assistance.
So not necessarily for the whole accounting, but these are projects that you and Ceda and the Chamber have worked on?
Correct.
Okay.
So this is specifically, these are projects Ceda has worked on and has either helped the business access some sort of financing, some sort of funding, some sort of incentive. You know, we've worked through a process with them to help them move their project forward, as well as some startups.
And so before getting into breaking out individual areas, how are we doing economically as far as you're concerned?
I think things are looking up. We're keeping an eye on the economic forecast just because we do hear that the global economy is set to do something and the national economy is set to do something. But overall, we're having some really good success helping local businesses grow and helping to start new businesses in our community.
So on the job front, what's it look like on the job front?
So overall, last year the projects that we worked with are aiming to create over 140 jobs. Over the course of the last 4 years, we've worked with companies that are looking to create over 500 jobs, which is pretty impressive. And then last year alone, those companies are retaining over 350 jobs.
So you also measured investment? So
Yes.
First of all, what do you define as investment?
So the investment is really how much are these projects investing in land, buildings, equipment. You know, how much are they spending on these expansions? So if they're, if they're looking to grow and they're spending those hard-earned dollars here, how much are they spending in our community to expand their business? And last year, the projects we worked on were planning to invest over $24 million in Cayuga County.
And is there any sector we're doing really well in, as far as you're concerned?
We are working a lot in agriculture right now. I think some of that comes from Derek bringing that expertise to the team, and we are seeing some promising factors there, but it is a tough industry right now. They are seeing some economic shifts that are affecting their long-term outlooks, and so we really want to continue working with them and making sure that they're staying sustainable.
And not that we can't turn any left or right without seeing a story about craft beers in New York
Yes.
State. Do you consider craft beer in that industry agriculture, retail, or manufacturing?
It definitely crosses a number of sectors. We tend to look at it more as an agribusiness or a manufacturing business. That's how we tend to approach some of these popular brewers that are growing right now. We worked with the VERRIER Ale and Lager last year. We're constantly working with Prison City on the expansion they're looking to do. So we really consider them in the agribusiness and manufacturing sector.
So how big a role or important is that industry to Cayuga County at this point?
It's becoming more and more important. We're seeing a lot of tourism around the craft beverage industry, and we really want to make sure that we're taking advantage of that and we can be part of that map, because when I first moved to Cayuga County, there was a big hole in the craft beverage trail map. There was a couple wineries, but there were no breweries in Cayuga County. So to see us come so far and be able to be a part of that industry really makes a huge difference, because people were just driving past Cayuga County.
So do you think there's still growth potential in that area?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. I don't think we've reached saturation there. Summerhill Brewing is doing some great stuff in the southern part of the county, so I think we could still see some growth in that industry.
We've got a lot more people growing hops.
It is, yeah. A lot more people across the state are growing hops
and
these
that's
days.
Partially because the governor has mandated a local content.
Correct. So the farm brewing law was passed a few years ago, and there's a step up where anyone who's producing under this particular regulation, they get certain benefits, but they do have to step up their content of New York State grown ingredients, and water does not count.
I was going to ask that. It does not, unfortunately. Okay. So do you have any cause for concern? I know you cannot, because if I could do it, I would do it as well and make a lot of money on it. We cannot control or even imagine what the stock market will do in the next hour. Right. Let alone the next year. Trade in China, whether there's a deal or not. But locally, and I know that would include Nucor in there, but do you have any concerns right now on the economic horizon locally?
Really, the big topic of conversation is workforce. You know, all of our companies are struggling to fill their jobs. They're struggling to find qualified workers. The labor market has tightened, which is a great thing. Unemployment is at a low, an all-time low. We are starting to see an increase in the labor force, which is positive because we've been seeing a decline since the recession a number of years ago. So to see that starting to turn around is a positive indicator, but we are still having a hard time connecting people with the jobs that are available. And companies can't do anything without people working there.
So and forget the politics of it, because I think it's a bipartisan ask. There's those who are saying, well, if Amazon doesn't want to go to New York City, have them come up here. Do we have the resources in upstate to land an Amazon? Forget the likelihood of it.
Right.
But if you said you wanted to locate a business for 25,000 jobs, do we have, if you say the market is tightening, it would only get tighter. Do we have that capacity?
I think we'd have to look at it from a regional perspective. I think if we take a regional approach to a project of that size, we could find a way to fill the need, especially from even a training perspective. You know, when you know you have 25,000 jobs coming, you can really plan for those jobs and build training around them when you have one customer you're working with.
And it's not to say that I think Center State, which you have a cooperative agreement with, did apply, was one of the applicants for the Amazon.
Yep, and Cayuga County was included in that proposal.
Any hot economic trends that you see out there right now?
I think we're keeping an eye on drones. Our neighbors to the east in Onondaga County have a really great resource for drones and really great programs around automated systems or unmanned systems with the Genius New York program, and we do have some funding in the Upstate Revitalization Initiative for that industry. It's only a growing industry, it's only going to get bigger, and the potential applications here in agriculture are really promising, so we're really keeping an eye on that.
And we have a program here where it's just funded by the Park Foundation just funded a program here up at the college. So I want to shift to CFAs, these consolidated financial applications. One of Ceda's roles is to help people file this CFA. First of all, what is a CFA? So
the consolidated funding application is basically a process that was we're coming into round 9 is about to start. So there's been 8 years of this process. Essentially 8 years ago, the governor said, let's put all of these state funding opportunities into one application and streamline the whole process. And so if a organization is looking for 3 different grants, they can fill out one application and access all 3 at the same time.
And these are part of the Red Sea program that are awarded in December.
Correct. So the Regional Economic Development Councils, which I'm a member of our Central New York Council, they provide the local perspective to the state. So all these grant applications come in, the council reviews them and scores them, and that is a portion of the scoring to see which projects get funded. So that council provides input on the priorities of our region.
And how does Ceda help with the CFA process?
So in addition to sitting on the council and helping with that scoring perspective, Cayuga County businesses can also get some assistance from our staff in terms of filling out the application, accessing the application, getting in touch with state agencies. We can help them through that process. So if they're having a hard time.
And you don't rank, as a member of the Red Sea, you don't rank Cayuga County applications that you've been part of.
Correct. So I try to
Everybody abstains from their own area.
So I
know that's been a criticism that is not local. It has been a statewide criticism, especially in the Monroe County area.
Right. So any application that one of the organizations I represent could directly benefit from, I have to recuse. I actually have to leave the room during conversation. It's very strict policy, and I don't provide a ton of assistance to the applicants myself for that reason. So our staff, Maureen and Derek, do work with applicants though on making sure that they have the right language and they're hitting the right points in their application.
So how has Cayuga County fared in the Red Sea process?
Very well, actually. We tend to do better than our percentage of population when it comes to
So thumbs up?
Yeah, to the funding coming to the region. Over the full 8 years, over $50 million of grant funding has come to Cayuga County. In just the last 3 years, it's been over $21 million in grants that has induced $84 million of investment total. So that's a lot of money coming into the county.
So this should be said, I had this conversation last week with the DRI discussion. It is not just free grant money from Albany. There has to be a local private investment in leveraging other funds to get Red Sea or the CFA.
Right.
There's no out and out necessary grants.
There's no 100%.
Go build a widget factory. There's not.
Correct.
Okay.
So when it comes to business investments, Empire State Development, most of the business type grants go through Empire State Development. They'll only fund 20% of the project. Okay. So a company has to be ready to really make an investment and create jobs. That's another big piece. We want to see jobs created. We want to see their private investment. And ESD will come in at the end and say, okay, if this is what it takes to make the project happen, we will put in the 20%, depending on those other factors.
So let's just talk about 3 projects that I think have almost come to the completion level. Cayuga Milk Ingredients and Aurelius. What was the CFA? What did they do? What did they do down there?
So Cayuga Milk Ingredients is part of a cooperative of farmers, and they take liquid milk and process it into a few different strains, but the main one is powdered milk, which they export around the world. They received a grant from Empire State Development and some tax credits in the first round, so they came in right at the very beginning, and they were able to build the plant. You know, that was part of the financing for the actual construction of their facility. And
separate from problems with trade with Canada, which is a separate issue that Chuck Schumer can deal with. They have been progressing, and job creation's been solid down there? Absolutely. They've met all of their goals. They also received some assistance through the Industrial Development Agency. They've been meeting those employment goals, so they've kept right on track with what they were planning. So glowing success there. Very much so. And they're only looking to continue to grow. Aurora Shoe Company? Aurora Shoe Company. So they're down in Ledyard. They actually have a huge market in Asia. And a few years ago, they got some ESD assistance and some Industrial Development Agency incentives to expand their facility to increase their manufacturing capacity. They make leather products, shoes. They were looking to expand their product lines beyond shoes, and add a retail component to their facility, because there wasn't really anywhere someone could go in and just like buy a pair of shoes. So that was part of their project as well. And then you've also been one of the early winners of the Red Sea process was the Rowland House down connected with the Inns of Aurora. What are they doing? So the Rowland House was an additional inn that they added to have more guest rooms. As they expand their building, they're looking to create that critical capacity to have visitors in Aurora and be able to sustain the business on its own. And so the Rowland House was added a number of years ago, and then after that they actually added an additional property, the Wall Court, that has more rooms, a larger capacity of rooms, and slightly a different style, but it really helped them get to the point where they had the rooms that they needed to. And they're both up and running? Correct. Wall Court and Rowland House are both up and running. Rowland House, they do a lot of private events and things of that nature, and then they are currently working on another inn at the what we're currently calling Shackleton. I'm not sure if that name's going to stick. Zabriskie might get in there. The funeral home. The funeral home down there. So they are building an inn there, and they're working on a spa project as well. So when's the next CFA round due? Or when does the next CFA round start? So we are expecting, so it's all dependent on the state budget process. Typically, which is a question as of today. Always a question. Depending on what the comptroller comes up with the revenue. Right. So normally we see the resource guide come out in April, May-ish. Okay. They open applications in late May, early June, and they're usually due at the end of July, which makes economic developers so thrilled that we're working on CFA applications over the summer, when we would love to be out on the lake. So you do have, you mentioned ESD before. They are coming into your office, or correct. Where are they going to be on Monday? So Dan Kalinsky from our regional office will be at our office at 2 State Street. Okay. He's doing a presentation on Monday, March 4th at 3 p.m. Not March 4th. March 11th. March 11th. Okay. Yesterday was March 4th. Right. March 11th at our office at 3 p.m. And he's going to be talking about specifically those Empire State Development grants. Who should be attending? Any business that may want to pursue this type of funding this year should come to this session and
ask Dan some questions, hear what the requirements are going to be. We're going to go through all the logistics of, these are reimbursement grants and what do you need to do from local labor, or not local labor,
so you don't have
but
to be
women-owned
a
businesses.
Ceda member or chamber member.
Nope.
This is open.
It's open to anyone who wants to come. It could be, we really want Cayuga County businesses to come, but if there's someone from outside of the area that even wants to pop over, that's fine too.
So we talked a little bit about what you're doing in the county. You've also co-chairing the downtown revitalization project with Mayor Quill.
Yes.
So you sleep when?
Sleep is not a problem for me.
Okay. So
it's a priority.
It's a priority. So last week we had Jenny Haynes and Christina Selvik just before the public meeting. Last week was going to start. I know there's another public meeting tomorrow. Where is the process right now?
So right now, the local planning committee, the LPC, we use a lot of acronyms. The local planning committee has come up with a ballot of priority projects and pipeline projects. The priority projects are going to be submitted to the state as part of our strategic investment plan.
About $12 or $13 million submission for the $10 million.
Correct. So we are submitting a little over $13 million of projects, and then to the state, and the state will decide which of those will be funded out of the $10 million that's available. They like to get a few extra so they can do a little extra due diligence, and if anything kind of isn't where it needs to be or isn't a priority for the state, it gives them some wiggle room.
And when will the submission be made?
So we have the public workshop tomorrow night at the Hilton at 6 p.m. That's going to present the slate of projects to the public, and then we are going to submit our strategic investment plan at the end of March.
Will there be another meeting after tomorrow?
I think that's going to depend on what kind of feedback we get tomorrow.
Okay. And when will you know what is funded?
Hard to tell. We expect possibly June or July.
But it's going to take a couple months.
It will be a few months. It'll be late spring, early summer before we get the information from the state. And then all those projects that are funded will need to go through a negotiation process to get their incentive proposal. They'll be assigned to a state agency. So really projects aren't going to start until at least this winter.
So some shovels in the ground most likely in 2020. Yes. Some projects will not be done until 2021 and beyond.
Correct. So we're hoping most projects will start in 2020. They should be ready to go in 2020. There may be a few that get pushed out to 2021.
Anything you can think of at this stage that you think is a top priority that there seems to be a lot of consensus on?
There was a set of, through this process since we were awarded, there's been a number of public workshops, and through those public workshops there were, I believe, 8 to 10 projects that came out on top with the LPC and all of the public workshops that we did. So we're hoping that those are taken into strong consideration because they were widely
shifting to the top that you can say.
So some of the ones so I can't say what's at the top for the state.
Okay. No, I meant locally.
But locally, some of the ones that went into the priority list pretty early on were like Nick's Ride, the West End Arts Campus, the Public Safety Building, or Shared Services Building.
So those are the ones you see that most of them shift through to the governor.
Yes, so those are all on the priority list since they had wide public support in this process.
So that's city work. We talked about what's in the county. Does it get confusing for people to understand what Ceda does, that it works both with the city and county?
Yeah, it sure does. I mean, there's a lot of different, even with all of this coming under one roof, there's still a lot of different acronyms and a lot of different agencies that do this work. So I think sometimes it's confusing for folks to think, oh, I need to go there to access this other thing. And we do want everyone to know that we're here to help anyone in Cayuga County.
The reason I asked you ran into a little bit of a stumble not caused by you, but the county legislature changed part of your funding.
Sure.
You have a multi-year contract with them?
We sure do.
How many more years do you have to run at?
It's going through 2020.
So next year, it's up for
Correct.
renewal. They are supposed to give you how much?
So up until this point in the contract, it's been $350,000.
And then there was an initial cut of $25,000, which we'll talk to Justin Woods about on Thursday, and then an additional 25 was put on there. Do you think that was partially because there is that, exactly what do you cover?
Yeah, I think there's some feelings around whether we do more work in the city or more work in the county, and who should be paying for that work. And I think to a certain extent there's some communication we need to do to help everyone understand, like, we know what we do every day and not everybody else does. So we need to make sure we're communicating the work that we're doing in a more efficient manner.
How are you making up for that lost funding?
So we did have some reserves, which is part of what brought the first initial cut about.
I thought that's what Justin Woods, the county administrator, had said. It was a little bit, in his opinion, there was too much in reserves. That's why he put the $25,000 cut in there, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So that was part of it. And so we are working from our reserves. We've adjusted our budget to an extent to, you know, cut out some of the things that are nice to have, but perhaps, you know, we can hold off a year and reinvest in them next year.
So your hope is to get this money restored for next year?
It is absolutely my hope to get this money restored.
So I don't want to cross everything over, but you're also the Chamber Executive Director. So there is some synergy between Ceda and the Chamber.
Yeah, it's really a symbiotic relationship. You know, we're both servicing the business community, and to be able to collaborate and align very intentionally makes a lot of sense, and the Chamber has a lot of resources we can access.
And you have, for example, State of the City on the March 28th,
yes,
which will be at the Holiday Inn. People can go to the website.
Correct.
Who can attend that?
Anyone's welcome to attend the State of the City and County Luncheon.
And that's the Chairman of the Legislature, the County Administrator, the City Manager, and the Mayor will be your normal speakers.
Correct.
At least that's the plan as of today, as
yes,
we tape this on the 5th.
Yes.
You also are having a career fair up here at the college.
Yes,
What
March
is that?
21st, we are bringing students from around Cayuga County into Cayuga Community College.
That's our week for spring break.
Correct.
Here,
yeah,
but you'll be here doing what?
So it's really just connecting students with employers so they can understand what career opportunities are available here in Cayuga County, so when they're done with their education they can stay local and work here.
So it's not necessarily somebody's going to be here offering jobs to people?
Yeah, there may be a few there that have some summer positions that they're going to start looking to fill, but for the most part it's really just making sure students feel comfortable knowing that they can stay in our community.
So this is not for the general public, it's for students through schools?
Correct.
You run 2 State Street, where you have Ceda, the Chamber, you have some other, the United Way just moved in?
Correct, yeah.
So they're on the 2nd floor. You also have Leadership Cayuga you're still operating?
Yep, the Chamber has Leadership Cayuga, the Finger Lakes Grants Information Center. We have a health navigator as well for anyone looking to access healthcare benefits.
And Ignite, the Young
yep,
Professionals group is there.
Correct.
Lastly, this week you also had an Opportunity Zones discussion. What are Opportunity Zones?
So it's a federal tax incentive program to induce investment in disadvantaged areas.
And I ask that because do you see the role of Ceda as also playing an educational role, whether it's Opportunity Zones, the ESD training? Is that a role Ceda is playing or should be playing?
Yeah, so part of our role is to help businesses and investors understand what their opportunities and resources are to do that.
30 minutes goes really quickly.
I know.
We covered a lot, but most likely could cover another 30 minutes. I'd love to have you back on to talk about what is going on at Ceda, but our guest has been over the last half hour, TRACY VERRIER, who is the Executive Director of the Cayuga Economic Development Agency, where we've talked about not only what is going on dashboard-wise and some good news that they have on that front. We'll be back on Thursday with Cayuga County Administrator Justin Woods. We'll be talking about Ceda and other items. There's a hint for him if he's watching. We'll have an update on the new Visitor Center with Auburn Business Improvement Director Stephanie DeVito and Courtney Casper, the new Experience Manager of the Equal Rights Heritage Center in downtown Auburn. Next week, Auburn City Manager Jeff Duggar will be joining us for a city update. And on Beyond the Front Page, we'll have County Planning Director Steve Lynch and Kiva Vandergest to discuss next week's input session on Emerson Park. Before we go, though, we would like to let you know that you can send us your ideas for questions or guests. You can do that at Inside Government, 141 Dunning Avenue, Auburn, New York, 13021. Or COZGUYTHO@AOL.com. I'm Guy Cosentino for Cayuga Community College. We want to thank you for watching. We hope you have a good night and have a great tomorrow.